and welcome to Charging Stack, where we talk technologies, ideas, and leaders transforming the future of mobility. Today, we're joined by Paulo Ferreira dos Santos, founder and CEO of Ubirider, the team behind the pickup and the platform that's helping cities, riders, and transit operators move better. From planning to payments, Ubirider is trying to solve one of the toughest challenges in mobility, making public transport actually work for everyone. Paulo, great to have you here and welcome.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and it is really a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Great to have you. I want to start with the beginning. You've been building the Uber router for a few years now, right? And clearly this isn't a side project for you. Was there a specific moment in the start when you thought this needs to be fixed, this needs to be addressed, and I'm going to build it, I'm going to tackle the problem?
So the idea of Ubirider was crossing my head, I would say, for more than 15 years. So in another company, I was dealing with a marketing manager, Dutch guy that was living in Amsterdam. He had this idea that saying, "Hello, I will never have a car." So we crossed almost all Europe, visiting customers, doing everything through public transportation, trains and buses. And I found fun, but sometimes really annoying that every place that we go, we need to understand the ticketing system or the tickets that we should buy, going to vending machines and losing a lot of time to buy several tickets to go from one destination to another. So that came the idea that something should be fixed. Times to times, I was exploring if the market and the technology state of art could be the ideal to do something that we could help to fix that problem of lack of interoperability to help people to travel seamless between any place. And arriving to a moment that I was intending to start a new project, I revisit again and I found that it was the right moment. So in 2018, to see and to develop some technology and some products that could help the providers of transportation and also the users of transportation.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, the how Uber works is definitely tackling something that really annoys me every day. It annoys a lot of people. Yeah, I wish Uber spreads to more continents, to more countries because we need it. We need it everywhere. So what? It sounds really complex when I think about the how the app was kind of built from the start. What did the first version of the Uber Rider look like, and how has the early vision evolved from now? You said from 2018, so now it's 7 years, right?
The main idea was working in a thing that meanwhile had surged and has a name called Mobility as a Service. So it surged in Sweden, further in Finland, and also in UK with Citymapper. So some apps that were developed to help people to plan trips, like you had in Google Maps, but increasing some other features that were important. So the possibility of understanding what tickets to buy, pay the tickets or the passes, and guide the people in real time from their origin to their destination. And that first wave of companies, as they came with a great claim, they were very successful in raising investment and in developing incredible apps. But they were not so successful in generating revenue because there was a difficulty in connecting with the ticketing systems in different places, so they could go behind what Google Maps was already doing. And creating the possibility that people could buy tickets and pay for them and travel using them. And we learned from that the lessons from this first wave of entrepreneurs and companies on this field. And we found also an opportunity to develop technology for the operators and authorities that could make their systems not just digital, but also interoperable. So being able of selling tickets, but also allowing that other apps could sell tickets. And we were also exploring what was developed by Transport for London in 2012. That was the possibility that people can travel just tapping their credit or debit card or their Apple Pay or their Google Pay. So that system from London, it was a great evolution because it was using open loop standards. So the credit and debit cards, so is a standard that is that we can that we use every day in supermarkets, in shoppings, in restaurants. So we pay with our card. But it was done under the state of art of that time. So it was 2012. And very complex, very expensive, and so on. And we thought that now we had the opportunity of creating technology for the operators that is much simpler, much faster, and much affordable, using just smartphones, mobile apps, and Android devices and cloud computing. And it is what we have start developing. So we start developing what we call Ubirider platform, that is a set of tools for operators to manage, to assess data and to manage their operation in real time. Not just the fare collection and the ticketing system, but also how to manage the fleet, how to manage the drivers, how to manage the services, and get a full stack platform where they can manage their business. This is software as a service, so we substitute a lot of hardware and a lot of complexity and a lot of integrations that normally exist. And we can deploy our platform in a couple of weeks. Doesn't matter the size of the operation. At the same time, we are creating contactless and digital points of contact that allows the travelers to use an app like ours, Pick, or that they can arrive to a bus and tap their card or their Apple Pay or Google Pay and travel. And we were intending to launch this on that incredible year of 2020, what means that didn't happen because it came the pandemic and everything was stopped for more than 2 years. So the pandemic lasts 1 year, 2 years, but for the transport market, it lasted at least 1 year more, because the year after the pandemic, the operators and authorities, they were absorbing the incredible losses that they had during the pandemic until they have resources to start investing. So the pandemic, for us, provoked us mixed feelings. So in one hand, delayed us in the market. On the other hand, it was really essential to change the mindset of the providers of transportation, because they found a lot of difficulties. So they found first what was not having passengers and customers, not having customers to travel. Found a lot of difficulties because everything is relying too much in hardware. So with people, with their staff, with COVID and so on, they could not go to do the maintenance and to put the things operating. So they, in most of the cases, they just opened trains and the buses and metros and left the people moving, because they could not really manage and using their systems. So there is now a new mindset. These operators and authorities, they understand the value of having cloud technology, that they can manage remotely their systems, not having hardware, and having systems that are much open. So because this allows them to be more resilient in face of the crisis.
Yeah. Speaking of coronavirus, I read a study how, I mean, you mentioned contactless. Everything is contactless. Everything became contactless after COVID, and everything became even more digitalized than prior to the COVID. So yeah, maybe also you saw the opportunity there, and there was a thing for you to. Yeah, great story, amazing. I wanted to even go a little bit back, maybe ask a little more personal stuff regarding your previous experience. Have your past work experience influenced you, Baratter? Because we did some research, and you were CEO of UK-based company called Kinematics, right? It's a company that was building devices that allowed remote monitoring of chronically ill patients. Really interesting, really interested us. So was there something in correlation to the current project? Was there something that you learned back then that you're applying now?
I'm getting old. We learn to accept how we are. So there are things in our mindset and the way that we see life that change with the time, and the things that we feel that we are wrong and change, and other things that we can just accept. So I need some emotion when I'm working So, and I never felt, even if I worked in great companies and have great bosses and great colleagues, I felt that, let's say, the more corporate companies, a little bit slower and difficult to take decisions and not so exciting. So arriving to my 40s, I decided to take risk and start a technological company. Even if it is really hard to start a business, and particularly when we are working on innovation, so that we are going beyond the limits of the market. So it is good that you have positive differentiation, that you create value, but the market doesn't know. So it's a new approach that it is necessary to explain, to educate, and this consumes time. But brought me the possibility of working with young and not so young people that are really bright, really ambitious, building something together. Kinematics didn't went so well in terms of the consequences because it was necessary to deal with the investment, and sometimes we need to have the stars align, and that time was not aligned, even if you built an incredible product that no one could do better so far. But for me, coming and moving for another project like Ubirider was quite natural, because first a big chunk of the team of Kinematics want to keep together, so they joined me also on this new venture of Ubirider, and also because so these steps are, every time that you do something, you learn something. So we were learning from the previous experience. We understood at that time that we were building hardware, and hardware in Europe was quite a challenge. Nowadays is the opposite. So, but we don't control the timing, because nowadays the environment in Europe is, let's create industry again in Europe. So let's abandon producing in China and come back to Europe. So there is a lot of investment. But at that time, so arriving to an European investor and say, I have a hardware business, and they run away. So it was really, really difficult. But we decided to, the learning that we had from hardware was really, really important to work with this contactless and the sensors and exploring the data that we can extract from mobile phones. But also it was really important to understand how we could build a more scalable business. So, but I love what I do. So that is the fact. And I love to go to the office. I love to discuss with the team what can be the next steps on the features of the evolution of the product, also managing with investment and managing with the sales. So
Yeah, I mean, I love the both products. I feel bad for kinematics, but I mean, if it wasn't for kinematics, you wouldn't be here probably with the Uber Rider. So yeah, bless the Lord with everything. So going back a bit to Uber Rider, for anyone who doesn't know, who's outside Portugal and the areas covered. So can you again go back and distinguish the difference between Pick as an app and then Uber Rider as a platform?
So the main complexity on those things. So we focus too much on the product. So the product is really important. The features, the value that we can create is really, really important. But nowadays, and comparing even with kinematics, the world is much more complex now. And we have tools. So there was a time that was really difficult to reach a customer. Now it is difficult to not bother a potential customer, because there is a lot of people and a lot of tools to communicate. So all of us, we receive plenty of emails that we can read of someone trying to sell us something. So the goal and the most important thing for me are the relationships. It is where I spend, I would say, 80% of my time is to envision some partnerships with other companies that we can be complementary, with other companies that has a problem that we can solve. On their side, they can help us on something. And this is the best way that we have to get consistent sales. The most difficult part is when we feel that we are right, there is a lot of forces to help us to give up of our vision. So, and there is the reality. So we need money, and we need money to keep on the path that we follow, and sometimes it's not so easy to get that investment. And at the same time, balancing the need of resources with keeping the pace. I truly believe that we are on the path of transforming mobility, and that is not a slow market, it is not a fast market, but it is necessary to keep on this track. And we have been very lucky on the relationships that we have found initially with with a Portuguese company that is the biggest private operator of transportation here, that is Grupo Barraqueiro. It's a family business with more than 100 years that bet on us because they understood that their market is becoming more digital, more data-driven, and they found that we have the right technology to put them on that track. Also, because we are creating new payment transactions. So if you look to the transport market, is virtually the last big economical area where you can't literally travel using your credit card and debit card. So we are creating new transactions, new payment transactions with credit card and debit card, and this was very attractive for companies, for a company like MasterCard that built with us a tremendous relationship, and a relationship based on the patience that we need that is not easy to change a so complex market. So I put some emphasis on the product. Of course, we need to be different and we need to be much better than the others, but we know that we can't achieve the success without friendship and tremendous relationships with that. And we have been very, very lucky in the people that we have found inside of these two companies, but others like Viva. Is an incredible company from Greece, and many others that we are working together to change really the way that people can travel.
Which part of the business is growing faster right now, if you can even say that? Like the Ubirider versus Pickup. So serving the customers and serving the companies.
Yeah.
Which is harder? Are they going simultaneously?
Yeah, so
Proportional?
Pick can work independently of the operator using or not using the Ubirider platform, because we thought that Pick shall be universal, shall work everywhere in the world. So and it works for planning trips.
I've tried it the other day.
Yeah, but it was developed for that. I believe that the mobility as a service starts on the wrong point. So the point is not on the app. So it's a little bit back of the app, is on the account of the user. So we are operating a thing that has a name that is account-based ticketing. So instead of having a card or a travel card that is card-based ticketing, we are using an account. And imagine an account like your bank account. So, but on this case is a mob where instead of traveling and having an account in London, account in Manchester, account in New York, you have your bank account or your mobility account that allows you to travel everywhere. So the point of contact with the account is your payment mode. Doesn't matter if you are using just a wallet or you are using a debit card or a credit card. Every time you use that payment mode, let's say to ride a taxi or to call an Uber or to pay for a train or to pay for a bus, we connect all those transactions with your mobility account. And this, like your bank account, you receive tickets or passes, and you pay for those media to travel. And we believe that the account, together with the app, is the right mechanism to allow people to travel and thinking beyond ourselves. So I can have in my account the things that I pay and I use. I go on a train, I pay and I go. The things that I pay and I'm not using, for example, I have a teenager son, so that I can pay his monthly pass or his trips, and you get the tickets, I get the bills, and even and also the other thing that is connecting personal life with my professional life. So having the things that I have not paid. Suppose that Ubirider is paying me the monthly pass or paying me when I travel for business or not travel for business, and I don't care. I just use my account because I have there or the money or the tickets that I can use to travel. This is our vision. And of course, on the side of the operators, because if you go to big cities, they have already, so thinking in London, for example, or in New York, they have the right infrastructure to deal with this. The problem is not the big cities, are the smaller cities. So the ones that are on the suburbs that don't have the same level of technology. And it is those that we are addressing. The ones that would like to have contactless payments or a more digital interaction or digital passes, and it is what we have done here. So our first customer is a small city in Portugal called Évora, They have just 20 buses, and they were the first city in the country to be contactless in terms of payments. It was the first city in the country where people could choose between a physical travel card or a digital travel card. Brought them a lot of simplification because Évora is a very touristic place. So having tourists from everywhere and not needing no more to understand the ticketing system or the public transportation system, how to buy a ticket. They just go there and they tap and they go. That is the level of simplicity that we are aiming, but the app goes behind what we are doing. I can share with you that ambition for us, for the app, is providing to each person what they need. So, for example, people that lives outside of cities make maybe a lot of sense that they use a car. On those cases, so we have the ambition of collecting tolls, collecting parking, and doing park and ride. We see that the transitions between tolling and parking and riding are really important to do. Also, together, if you have an electrical vehicle, to charge it. So tolling, parking, charging, and riding are the things that we are working hard to materialize. So we have been working starting by the riding, so riding public transportation, but now we are working hard to arrive to 2026, and it's not so far that we can have all those topics inside of our app and allowing people to travel everywhere, connecting just with an app.
Going a bit back, you mentioned collaborating in your partner. What does it feel like to land a partner like a MasterCard, and how does the whole process goes with such a huge company, such a huge potential client and partner? And if you could tell us maybe what do you look for, what do you look in a great partner? What do you look for in a partner?
Companies are like people, so we need to choose them by their personality, so by the way that they really behave, not just on the way that they communicate, because we have very good communicators and sometimes we get some disillusions because companies communicate well but they behave differently on the way that they communicate. MasterCard is maybe the most interesting case in my career. Because I have the story to tell. So I was in the middle of the pandemic, no customers, no idea when I will have customers or even if the company will close. I went to the website of urban mobility of MasterCard, and I wrote an email. Explaining what was my vision to create new transactions and requesting a meeting because I was lacking some pieces of knowledge, some pieces how the payments really work that I believe that MasterCard could help us. So and I wrote this email, not with a lot of expectations because it's a cold email, in the middle of a special timing that everything was stopped, and I was invited for a meeting with 8 people. So I got really surprised. It was so surprising that I called Grupo Barraqueiro, that was my only investor at that time, and I called to the person that was dealing with my account, so Artur Pedrosa, and I said, you need to join me on this meeting because they will run away when they will see the size of our company and the size of our ambition that was very different. But the fact it was that everything started there. So they really found that our vision was really interesting. They were not knowing exactly if it will work in practice, but they become on our side to help us to materialize that. And they start putting a lot of questions and trying to figure out how they could help us. And they introduce us to some other companies that could have some tools or some technologies that could be interesting for us. So they never said to me, you shall do this or shall do that. So they simply were there to enable that we could materialize our vision. And we signed the first agreement. We signed a global agreement in 1st of July 2022. That was exactly the day that we launched the first case in Évora. So it was a coincidence, but since then, and there are already 3 years that we'll do in a couple of weeks, I have no words to say what I have learned, what I was taught, what I was helped, or what we were helped to materialize things. Now we are going together to some deals together, and they have been on my side. And if you allow me, the other case that is really important and shows how important are the partnerships, like the friendships that we have in our personal lives. It was the case of Grupo Barraqueiro, because when the pandemic came, we suffered, but they suffered enormously because they were they are operators, so they have bus operations. They have 65 companies of buses, of trains, of metro, even boats. So, and with the pandemic, everything was frozen. And one of the first calls that I received when it was defined the first lockdown, it was from Artur Pedrosa from Barraqueiro, and saying to me, Paulo, this will be really, really tough, but I want to tell you that we are going to help you. We don't want that you stop, because we believe that at the end of the pandemic, your technologies will be even more important for us than they are now. So we are going to help you, or we are going to help Ubirider financially through this pandemic. And they did it without requesting nothing. So these two companies, Barraqueiro and MasterCard, are companies that they are part of us. They live the same vision that I have, and they were strong enough to support us along these difficult moments, and that is an extra motivation for us. We don't want to let them down, and so we work hard because we are hard workers, but we work even harder because we want to deliver to them success.
I mean, great two stories, amazing. I wanted to ask you, going back again to the app itself, to the solution itself. How do you design for everyday riders, for someone who is using this service every day? And is there some type of feature, maybe a detail in the product they think more people should notice? Maybe they're struggling with, but they don't know there's a feature for it.
Yeah, that is really a great question, because when we look to ourselves, the way that we travel is not the same. When we are in our hometown, or when we go to other places, we are in vacation, or when we are in a business trip. There is a lot of variation on the way that people travel, and each one as a particular difficulty. That is the beauty of the software, or coming out of the hardware and going to a level of abstraction, a higher level of abstraction that is working on software. Is, can we figure out on how to develop something that is really scalable, but at the same time allows a lot of personalization. So I start my career working in industry, and physical industry, things for automotive market. And one of the things that always liked is the sense of one thing that is created by the Japanese called mass industrialization. So or mass customization. That is basically that you change, not maybe you have 3 colors and maybe you have three different setups, and the combination you have 9 things to sell. It is what we have done particularly on this, that is with software. So we are using some techniques of mass customization. So we define a lot of personas, how people travel on this city, on that city. They need a travel card, they can use a card or a credit card or whatever, or they can use an app, and we try to define all those personas. And after, we decide to find patterns between them. And after we found that there are, if we change some things, we can serve a lot of people. For example, there are people that can, on their cities, and happen here in Portugal, that you need to have a travel card. And the problem is, okay, how can I charge my travel card? I need to go to a vending machine, or I need to go to a ticket office to charge it. But here with the phone, we have an NFC. So we found a way that we can connect the card with the phone, and we can charge from our homes without going to a vending machine. Put our app, instead of being very obsessed this is our way. We develop our app is to adapt to the circumstances that exist on every place. There is some small tricks, and asking for replying to the things that you work. So, for example, I'm a huge admirer of Google Maps because it's a so incredible product that you don't have other products at the same time. Also, because we consume some services from Google Maps. I normally say that there are two kinds of companies that are developing mobility apps with the international ambition. There are just two kinds: the ones that use Google Maps and the others that lie. So all of us we use Google Maps, even if we are using different things and putting different sauces on that. One thing that we try to do is we knew that we could not be better than Google Maps, but we believe that we could be better than Google Maps and the others in something. And one of them is when you arrive to a new place and come out, for example, from an underground metro station, and you don't know the place, how can you feel the sense that you know where you are and what to do next to move for the walk? And that is a thing that I believe our app is one of the best in the world. So it's a mix between the design of the app and the way that my software team has implemented. And on that, we are really, really obsessed, and I think we are quite good. So we have a lot of emphasis on the user experience, on the design. So I follow for a long time a ratio that is one designer per each pair of engineers, of software engineers, and that creates some kind of connection that at the end we have products with above average or incredible user experience.
Oh, amazing. I want to just to follow up on this. Is there something in developing? You mentioned development, your development team. Is there something that turned out to be way harder than expected, maybe in the design process, in the idea process, and when it came to actually producing it?
Yeah, so in my field, every time I go to an operator, he asks me if we can do a white label from our app. So it's a kind of standards of standards. You see, most of the apps that you find in the market, they are developed in white label. So an operator or an authority or a city that wants to buy an app don't have the capability of doing an app, so they outsource the app development. And at the beginning, it was really hard because some guys say, "Oh, your app is good. I'm interested, but you need to do a white label." And I always replied, we don't do a white label. So, or you use our branding, or we prefer not doing business. Why? Because I know the process of building an app. So you do something and you discuss with your team internally and you find incredible ideas. After you implement them, you launch and the users don't understand them. So, or they don't serve. So it's a lot of trial and error to understand what really works and what doesn't work, This cannot be done in outsourcing, because in outsourcing, I do a contract with someone to a list of specifications. If after the customers don't understand, you need to do another project. So to do apps, really, you need to live them. You need to use them. You need to talk with the users every day and understand what really they like. And for me, an app is also the communication itself. It shall grow organically just because the product is really great in serving the problems of the users, So I can't make a huge list of things that we failed when we were developing. So there are a lot of ideas that we thought that were so great, and after you put them and people don't understand or they don't like, so you put on the trash and you try again and you try again. I can say that we have been successful because we have almost not spent money in promoting the app. I think if we have
oh, really?
Yes. If we have spent maybe 1,000 euros, it was too much. I don't see.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
So I go to TikTok. I have friends that call me. So have you seen this video on TikTok about your app? Have you paid to these guys? I don't know who are the guys. They do videos, they do things, they post things on Twitter. Are our customers and our users that are promoting the app. So I believe
that's the best marketing.
Yeah. I believe that we are going to achieve until the end of this year. I believe before the end of this year, are going to achieve 500,000 users. What it is really, 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 really incredible. And And this shows very well the quality of my team in doing this, because so HAP is really interesting because it's a communication channel between a company and the users and the customers and I think we have a great product. But going to your question, to achieve it, we did a lot of mistakes and trial and error to arrive to this level of quality.
Absolutely. Without mistakes, nothing can be achieved to the great scale. I want to talk about payments, tickets, integration. I wrote down integration. How
Yeah.
did you approach something? I know in Croatia, how it will be hard to work out, to find a way to do it. How did you approach something as fragmented and political, I can say, ticketing process?
Yeah, so it's quite a standard that everyone thinks that his problem is unique, but it is not. The fact is that there are patterns on that. I believe that there is, as I said, a need of educating. So people tend to think based on their benchmarking on the past, and not thinking what can happen in the future. I talk a lot with deciders, people from governments, people from city mayors, from city councils that discuss ticketing. And the fact is that there are one thing that I feel and I understand. So one is the need of protecting the transaction. Doesn't matter if it is a validation with a card or a payment. There is the need of doing this. And before connectivity, or before we could connect with our phone everywhere, everything was relied on physical infrastructure, in hardware. And that was very, very, very complex. But nowadays, everything that we do is real time. And the transportation is not real time. Most of the transportation system is still offline. And that was a big difference that Ubirider brought. So we decided to do everything real time, even the payments. So if you tap in our system, in a bus, we are performing the transaction in real time. This is quite rare. I would say is quite unique in the transportation market. It's the same that we do in supermarkets and stores, but in transportation is quite rare because people still thinking that it's too slow to do it offline, to do it in real time. But the fact it is not. Of course, it was necessary to evolve the technology. It was necessary to innovate. To achieve the level that we achieved, but we proved that it is that when you come out from physical infrastructure where changing a price or changing a rule from the ticket is really hard and complex, and you put everything on the cloud, changing the rules or changing the price is a fraction, is a thing that you do in less than 1 second. And that allows, in one hand, to play with higher rules and the different pricing levels. Also benefits because we know that some passes and some tickets are subsidized. For us, it's not a problem because we brought that from the physical level, from the hardware, to the cloud level, and this is also unique in our back office for operators and authorities. So they are autonomous to change themselves the rules and the prices, and it is really funny because when they buy the technology, they want to deal with a lot of different rules and different prices. But when they get the visibility on the back office about the data, they tend to reduce the number of rules and the number of pricings. They find that people want the thing simple. Sometimes we found that we have an operator that has more than 1,000 different fares. 1,000 different fares. And after when they start seeing that most of the fares are not provoking no revenue at all, they simply exist, they tend to reduce them and to eliminate them and to make the system much simpler. So less fares, less rules, and to help the users to understand the ticketing system.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of work. But I mean, obviously, with 500,000 users, you're doing a great job. I don't know. I have nothing to add.
The
Speaking of growing,
opportunity exists because the problem is difficult. If it was easy, there was no problem to solve. Of course, if you want to do something really unique, you need to embrace the difficulty. You need to love it because it's difficult. So it's difficult for you and for the others. So it is necessary a lot of determination to face the problem problem, and that is good because you go to places where you have less competition. So it's all
Yeah.
about innovation.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned going to the places with less competition. Are there new markets you're looking at right now, expanding outside Portugal? And how do you choose a new region or a city? How do you think about
Yeah. So
that process? How do you approach those things?
So now, particularly on this exists almost everywhere, but particularly on the transport or mobility markets is more. So a big factor that we can't change is regulation, or the excess of regulation, or the complexity of regulation. So, and I'm in Portugal, if I go to Spain, the rules are different. If I go to France, the rules are different. There is a lot of conversation in the last 10 years or so from European Union to make a kind of common mobility market, but it is necessary some political enforcement that at the end of the day is not done, and everything becomes very complex and very regulated, and mobility is very oriented for public market. So even if you deal with private operators, they need to follow public rules or rules defined by the public sector. Public sector everywhere is not known for adopting a lot of innovation. So normally they are very defensive, and they prefer to define the rules and based on the technology from the past than on new technologies, and that is an extra difficulty for us in Europe. So we tend, and particularly myself, I tend to look to markets where the regulators are more pragmatic and are really interested in moving forward. So I'm really excited
So
with
which
it.
countries are that kind of, if we can
Oh,
in Europe, if we can.
I'm really excited. I'm really excited with opportunities in Central America, for example.
Okay.
Countries like Panama, Costa Rica, Salvador, Guatemala, because they have problems in the mobility. The transport is really social benefit on those countries, and at the same time they have higher incidence of smartphones. For example, if you look to Costa Rica is the country in the world where more people are using credit cards and debit cards. So it's really interesting. So they have the ingredients or the elements to make the mobility digital or the mobility contactless. Contactless and digital for me are very well connected, and so I'm really interested on those guys because they at the same time they want to move for technologies that are affordable, faster to deploy, and very based on facts, on data. And so those are markets that we are interested a lot. I see also some opportunities here and there in countries. For example, I see that UK is in a big transformation outside London. They are coming from a deregulated market for a regulated market, and this creates a need of new tools for the authorities to control how the public transport is being performed, and also for the operators, and that is a country where I see also great opportunities. I see a lot of opportunities also on the east of Europe. So I see that countries like Estonia, like Poland, are really being more practical in more than having everything very tight. Is really necessary to give the benefit to the populations of having simple transportation where people can access easily, can pay easily, and can travel easy.
Awesome. So pragmatically, that is what you prefer
Yeah.
currently, right? They're really interesting with the Costa Rica fact. I didn't know that. It's really interesting, and possibly I even never think about that market of Central America. It's probably the last thing that comes to mind. But yeah, as you think with a deep research like yours, yeah, amazing. What is next for Ubirider? Looking at the future, I mean, I've read that you guys recently raised about $2 million
Yeah.
seed funding, right? Congrats. What's something now that you're working on that you're excited about? Any new tech, new ideas, new features on the both apps in the pipeline? Or maybe a year from now, what's something you hope will be true about the company?
Yeah, so we in different levels, I have different goals. In terms of the technology, so is materializing what we call the UMA, that is the acronym for Unique Mobility Account, so that allows people to have a mobility account, and that is important for the travelers. So I can have all my transactions with mobility and transport centralized in one place. That is one thing, but also because operators also need a good system of account-based ticketing. So account-based ticketing costs a lot of money for each operator because is doing as a fragmented thing. and we believe that we can reduce their costs and improve the quality of their account system if we have a kind of universal account system that they can just deliver or outsource to us to manage. With that mobility account, we can grow enormously the potential of our app, because a lot of people can travel everywhere and pay everywhere and access transportation everywhere just using our app or their credit or debit cards. That is one thing. The other thing is achieving profitability. We are not yet profitable, but we believe that we can be until the end of this year or beginning of 2026 with some operations that we have in the pipeline. So because I'm a great believer, and particularly the market of venture capital is very strange and is normal, sometimes becomes more strange because it depends of a lot of things that are happening on the financial market. So, but I believe that these technological companies shall be also profitable, shall grow enormously, shall be very ambitious, and we ambition high rates of growth. But shall be profitable. So we are at this moment are the two main goals, is being profitable and having this technology that allows not jumping from 500,000 of users to 50 million of users or more.
Well, we wish you all the luck, all the best luck in getting there and becoming profitable as soon as possible. And basically, we're coming to the end of this interview. I would like to finish with a lightning round of questions, the quick fire questions, maybe like answering in a sentence or two. I would ask you first one: what is the most underrated challenge in public transport right now, in your opinion?
Regulation.
What is the most overhyped idea in public transportation slash urban mobility right now?
Mobility as a service.
Okay. A city or a country you'd love to launch in? We kind of briefly touched in. Also.
Japan. I would
Okay.
love. So any country in Asia or South Korea or
Amazing.
Japan, because are systems that I admire really a lot.
Yeah, really punctual, right? Really
Or even
keep the
could
rules.
be Shanghai. Why not?
Yeah. One thing every transit app should have by the end of 2030. So in a 5-year period, for example. Or what do you expect every transit app to have?
So the possibility of paying fares everywhere.
Okay. Well, that is all that I have with my questions for today. Thanks again to Paula and the whole Ubirider team for sharing what it really takes to build a smart mobility solution from the ground up. It's easy to talk about fixing cities, but it's much harder to actually do the real work, especially in public transport. But that's where the teams like Ubirider come in, making the complex systems feel simple for rider cities in the future. And that is all from us. Stay tuned for more. And yeah,
Thank you very
thank you so much,
much.
Paula.
Thank you very much,
Yes.
Marin. And the best wish also for your videocast. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you.